University.
Next on Imagenes, the contributions and struggles of Hispanic American artists. Saludos, welcome to Imagenes. I'm Miguel Perez. They are making wonderful contributions to society. Their work could serve to enrich all of our lives. They make strong social commentaries that help us visualize the issues that are prevalent in the Hispanic community. And yet not all Latinos appreciate or are even exposed to their talent. They are Latino American artists. And today on this program, we're going to discuss the issues and the messages in their work. We will find out about their struggle to receive the exposure to convey those messages as we chat with two talented Latinas who have found their way to success. Esperanza Cortez is a New York artist whose work has been exhibited in many prominent galleries for more than a decade. And Zoraida Martinez is a New Jersey artist who paints and lectures about her personal inner strokes to overcome the odds. Welcome to the program. It's a pleasure having you here. Let's start from the very beginning. What is it that motivates people like yourselves to become an artist? What was that first driving motivation that you felt? Esperanza, why don't you begin?
My first experience was when I was 4 years old. I remember it very well. My parents brought me to a cathedral. I don't remember well having been in a church before that. My family was brought up Roman Catholic, and I was amazed. I looked around me, and I asked one of the nuns, I said, who made this? Thinking God had made the stained glass, the architecture, the sculptures, the paintings, the altarpieces. And she turned around and said to me, artists make these. And I thought immediately, I want to be an artist.
Where was this cathedral?
It was in Harlem, Our Lady of Lourdes.
Have you ever been back?
Actually not. I guess it's so beautiful in my memory. I don't really need to go back and see it physically. I mean, it lives beautifully in my memory.
Zoraida, what was your first experience?
I guess it's just the idea that I can express myself through art. And as a little girl, I saw that through pictures you can tell stories. And expressing yourself lets you, it's an outlet to let that, the feelings come out, the strong emotions that I had as a little girl living in New York City. I lived in Harlem when I was a little girl, and it's a struggle just living there, and I needed an outlet, and I always thought of art as an outlet to express myself.
And when did you actually begin expressing it through art? When did you start
when I was a little
practicing?
girl at the age of 8, I used to draw, and in school a lot of the teachers inspired me to continue to draw because they thought I was talented, and they gave me actual projects to do portraits of African American figures, and I did portraits, and that inspired me, and I continue. Since then, I just continue doing that.
Esperanza, when did you get started?
I think that same day when I got home, I decided that this was something I was going to do. And I taught myself how to draw, and I think I started to paint when I was about 7. My parents had a very good friend who was actually Cuban-American, who was an artist. And he came over our house and he saw some of my paintings and drawings, and he told my father, this is a very talented child. You have to buy her the right equipment. So he took me to Greenwich Village, bought me my own painter's box, the wooden painter's box with all the paints, the brushes, everything, canvas. And it was something that I think I received so much support along the way from teachers, from family, friends, from family, always.
Zoraida, you said that this was a way to express yourself, but we have a videotape that we want to show of people expressing themselves about what they see in your work, and also, of course, some of your paintings will show in this video. So let's look at it.
Okay.
As the exhibition went up here at the college, I noticed that people were drawn to the paintings very quickly. She is working in an abstract way. She expands it so that it relates to many, many people. The simple shapes, the flat shapes that she uses, the simple, strong color and lines, she's using really an international style.
Somebody like Zoraida represents as a role model, first and foremost. You know, she's a Puerto Rican artist, and I think that our youngsters need role models. She, of course, expresses, you know, her desire through the arts, and so people can see that there are many ways to express yourself, and her, I think one of the most things that outstanding about Zoraida from what I've read is that she's very, very in tune with higher education and wishes to donate some of her monies to higher ed to support those youngsters who want to continue their education. And I would hope that some of them would do it through the arts also.
Zoraida, one of these paintings is about a very personal experience you had. Tell us about it, and what was the title of it?
Yeah, the title is...
The one we're looking at right now.
The title of it is One Day I Found a Lump in My Breast. And at the age of 35, I found a lump in my breast, and I was facing possible cancer. So I've always painted, and I've always wanted to come out public, you know, because I have a lot of things to say. And I decided that's when I wanted to come out public and exhibit my paintings and express my thoughts and my ideas.
What reaction have you gotten from women who have this concern about this painting?
Well, I've had a lot of positive feedback because it's a subject matter that is really not talked about, and
especially in the Hispanic community.
Right.
It's a taboo subject.
It is. It's taboo in mainstream America because people just don't talk about what makes them feel uncomfortable, and it needs to come out. It needs to come out. Like, you know, that's most of my paintings are about subjects that don't really make you feel really comfortable, but they need to be expressed and discussed. And discussed, and yeah.
So part of what your mission, as you see your mission, is to open people's minds? Yeah,
well, that's the whole thing. I want people to open up their minds and to have a deeper understanding of the human soul and have tolerance against racism, sexism, and actual labeling in the society. Because usually when you label somebody, you have to either live up to it or live down to it, and that's what my paintings are about. Yeah,
and we're going to talk a little bit more about some of your other titles or some of your other themes, because they're very important. You mentioned racism, and there's a lot of important messages I've seen in some of your pieces about that. Esperanza, what are some of the issues that you deal with in your painting?
When I paint or when I make a sculpture, it's not so much from a personal point of view. I'm trying to make the kind of work that people can feel connected to, regardless of where they're from, regardless of their sex, regardless of whatever orientation they might have. What I try to do is connect with the other human being. There's a piece that I did for the quincentennial celebration. It was a show that was organized by Juan Sanchez, who's a wonderful Puerto Rican artist. And what he did was have the perspective of what is referred to as the other, the Latin American, the African American, the Asian American, the Native Americans' response to this quincentennial. So I thought a great deal about it. I wanted to make a piece that I felt touched on a lot of issues that people were choosing to ignore at the time. And what I did was I made this figure of, you could say, of a serpent goddess, you could say, rising up. She's on the wall. It's a sculpture. It looks very human.
Do we have a picture of that? I think we do.
One.
There it is.
That is the piece that came right before the installation.
Mm-hmm.
She's rising up on the wall, and as she's rising, there's a trail of 500 roses, clay roses, that follow her. On the floor, it's in a triangular shape is bed of salt, marble pieces on which fallen figures have been painted of women. They're the color of dried blood, and hands, speaking about destiny. So there's the 500 roses for every year that has passed. There's the bed of salt. It talks about the pain, the difficulties. There's the marble pieces which talk about the monuments that fell. And then there's the serpent that's rising.
The bed of roses right there.
That's part of the bed of roses, yes. Each piece is made by hand. Each petal has my left lifeline embedded into it. And so that there's a bit of the human being involved. And of course, the roses are the color of flesh, of a kind of flesh, because they're some of them are very light, some of them are very dark.
Now, I have a very basic question from someone who's not an artist. How do these images get conveyed to the general public? In other words, you've pointed to a lot of symbolism that is part of your work, but how does the general viewer who goes to an exhibit see this and sees this beautiful painting but doesn't know what the petals represent?
Well, I had an experience.
How do you convey that?
I had an experience. I showed this piece at Soho 20, it's a gallery in Soho. An older German man went to the show. He had been brought by a relative. He stood in front of the piece, looked at it and looked at it, and I was very interested in his response. He finally came back to me and said, I know exactly what this is all about. He said, this is about the Holocaust, isn't it? This is about all of the pain and the tragedy. This is about the fact that we should never forget that things happen of this nature. And he said, and you see that woman, what she is, she's like this goddess form that shows that the human spirit lives on no matter what. And I told him that he was absolutely correct, because for me, what's most important is that people connect in their own personal way, because I'm not necessarily telling an exact story.
So in other words, they may interpret your painting in a different or a slightly different way, but it's still okay as long as the general theme is there.
Because, I mean, we can't, I don't want to think who has suffered more than someone else, who has more rights than someone else. We all have rights.
The viewer brings in their personal experiences. And, you know, what you see, what you experience.
Right.
And so you've had people identify with some of your art in a different way, maybe, than you intended it to be?
Well, they bring their own personal experiences, and through their personal experiences, they understand it deeper. You know, they get a deeper understanding of what I'm trying to convey. Like I have, like Piano Man, The Survival of Hope, is an actual, I use a lot of symbolism, and I use blocks for hands, which represents the doubting soul. You know, usually a lot of people have mental blocks, and they think they're actually in the hands, but it's actually in your mind. And it just, you know, shows the uneasiness of the human soul, and that's you know, I do.
Well, one of the things that I've noticed that it bothers me considerably, because I go to galleries and I go to museums especially where Hispanic artists are being presented, and I don't see many people there, frankly. You know, Latinos, especially younger Latinos,
especially women,
prefer going to a salsa concert and paying maybe $30 admission than to go to a free gallery.
No, but I think
take in the
I
art.
thought you was talking about this.
But I think that there's a reason for that. I think that often people don't realize that these possibilities are open to them.
Well, that's what we're here for.
I think that, you know, I mean, I think that we have to communicate through the media that these possibilities are there. I work at El Museo del Barrio. I'm the artist in residence there. And we did an event.
We should say it's the most prominent Hispanic museum in New York City.
Yes, and it's a wonderful place. And on one Saturday, we specifically went out of our ways to make a special day. It was called Family Day. It specifically sent flowers to the schools, to the churches, to all the organizations in the area. The place was mobbed. So what I see is that very often people don't realize that these possibilities are open to them. That this is a place as much a part of their life as the park is. That, you know, this is a possibility for taking their children for an outing on a Saturday. And that an opening is an opening for everyone in the public. I think it's just a lack of communication, which is part of what we're talking about.
Well, the arts are looked down upon. in the society, I think. They're not really thought of as something great, you know. I think most people prefer to go to the movies, and that's what they promote, you know. And
It's a lot
even
more
in the school
commercialized, the
system,
movies
the
are.
first thing to go is the arts, you know. So it's, I
But
think
you take those messages out to the schools, don't you? You speak at schools
Yeah,
and you talk about art?
I talk about art and empowering yourself with your own inner truth, and what I go out there is to kind of be like a role model for young girls and people that are financially disadvantaged to go for their own, you know, to go and educate themselves and actually go for what they want to do in life.
So
And
basically,
don't let anything stifle them, you know, like, you know, obstacles in this society, you know.
Your message is that if I could do it, so can you?
Right, correct.
And how do
Correct,
they
yeah.
respond to that?
A lot of people are inspired. It's very positive. They do need role models, and if you see somebody doing it, that you're going to be inspired, and you're going to go and do it yourself. I think in the society, like Latina women, Puerto Rican women don't have role models, and they need that. They need to see role models, professional women, artists, you know, whatever, you know, that are out there, you know, to show, you know, to see that. And I think kids will be inspired by that.
We spoke briefly about getting the people to the galleries. How do we get the galleries to present your work? Is that another struggle that you're fighting with, especially
I think they have
Hispanic women artists?
Yeah, they have preconceived ideas of what you paint and how you paint, because the art world itself is kind of they're kind of rigid, you know. And it was been a male-dominated art world for a long time, and it still is. As women, we're just starting to, you know, to come out, you know. And they never thought of women's art as being valid. And especially if you're a Puerto Rican woman, they have these preconceived ideas that you're not formally taught, you know, as an artist, and they just have these ideas, and they don't really let you in.
But you see, that's kind of amazing in a world that's supposed to have a very open mind, the art world.
But to tell you the truth, I don't really see things that way. I mean, as far as what you were talking about education before, I think one of the things within the Latin community that I see, and I see this with the African American community also, I think that often talents just aren't given the same amount of attention, let's say, that is given in other realms in society. I mean, what I do, the kind of work that I do is I work as artist in residence. I've worked for El Museo del Barrio, Museum of Modern Art, the Brooklyn's Children's Museum. I think very often people don't realize how talented their children are, what an extreme intelligence it takes to do these kind of things. It's, you know, I think we have to re-educate ourselves and everyone else about it. But as far as my experience as an artist, I think that I've had a very good experience. I think that people have been very kind and supportive. But then at the same time, this was something that you and I spoke about before. I think what you dedicate yourself to will, in some ways...
But they have a glass ceiling. As far as a woman artist, I think in the art world, there's a glass ceiling. I mean, I don't know of any woman artist that has reached the Picasso status, you know. And I think that we're just as talented as men, and I think that we deserve the chance. And
but I think, you know, we have to consider the time period. You know, I mean, we all live within our own historical moment, and I think that we are living in a moment where how people judge things, the way they identify things, is changing radically. I mean, you can't even specifically say, what is art? You know, that is a very open question. You know, even what is a woman? That is a very open question. So, I mean, to me, it's very important to not limit myself in any way with language, or to make sure that no one else tries to limit me. But I've had very good experiences. I can't say that people have been unjust.
And talking about limiting ourselves with languages or certain terms, you have one of your pieces, it's called Please Don't Call Me a Minority. Mm-hmm. So
right.
The limitation of the word minority bothers you.
Right, because the word minority is an unfair label with negative connotations. And it has a double meaning, you know, like when somebody says minority, is a buzzword for like saying second-class citizens. And I know it, well, a lot of people know it, little kids know it when they're called minorities, and I think in order to be mainstream, they should include us, you know, and it's like the word minority is an actual verbal segregation. And I think that if we're going to succeed, we're going to have to kind of melt in, you know, and it should include us in that sense, you know.
We don't have that painting in front of us, but tell us what that painting tries to convey when you deal with the word minority through a painting.
Well, it's actually kind of like frustration. It shows frustration. It's a woman holding her, you know, with her hands up. It's frustration because it's when you hear the word minority, it's like they have a preconceived idea of who you are, and it's a struggle to get off that, you know, getting out of that label. You know,
and sometimes in some areas, some neighborhoods, some schools, instead of a minority, the people that they're really talking about when they say minority are in fact a majority.
Right,
of the kids, or in a school in particular. For example, I was in a school recently where the kids objected to my using the term minority. As a journalist, for lack of a better term, I end up using that term sometimes, and the kids were very incensed about it. I mean, they were saying, don't call us minority, we're a majority here. And I said, okay, come up with a better term. The fact is we haven't come up with a better term.
Well, I think that part of the way that we identify ourselves is very important, you know, and I think we often do not refer to ourselves as Americans, which we have the right to do, you know. Very often people ask me, well, what do you consider yourself? Well, if I consider myself something, I'm Colombian American. Someone said to me, there's no such term. I said, if there's Italian American, if there's Irish American, there's Colombian American. But you know, more than anything else, I was raised in this culture. I'm an American. And I've had people argue with me, and I just think that it's funny. I'm not going to take it personally because that's actually their problem.
The true Americans are the Indians. And, you know, everybody came from someplace.
Well, they are the Native Americans, and in fact, what I always say is that all of us are American, even if we were born in Cuba or in Colombia, because America is the whole continent.
Well, I think, you know, you identify yourself with where your heart is. I was raised here. This is my country. I am an American. And I will not let anyone argue with me as far as that's concerned, you know.
I consider myself an American, a multicultural person, because I've been influenced by a lot of cultures. You know, living in the United States, you have to be influenced.
Right.
I mean, people are influenced.
But as a Puerto Rican American and as a Colombian American, your work reflects Puerto Rican culture and Colombian culture, does it not?
Well,
sometimes?
Sometimes. I mean, there's a piece that I did, I don't know if you can show it right now.
Let's try. We have a couple more there. Let's see if it...
There were two more afterwards. There's a red painting that one, and if you could show the next one. This piece I did on a tragedy that happened in Colombia. I was born in Bogota, and I have family that lived in the mountainsides right by Bogota, and there was a mudslide. There was a volcanic explosion and a mudslide.
I remember that. Yeah.
And all these people were literally cooked in the earth. And there was a photograph that I had seen that really just touched my heart, broke my heart in many ways, of this young woman that they had taken like 24 hours to pull out of the mud. When they pulled her out, she was in that exact position. The mud had literally cooked her skin. They worked like 24 hours to pull her out. When they finally pulled her out, I mean, she was completely naked because her clothing were inside of the mud. She was so beautiful. I mean, I just thought that she was extremely beautiful, and she lived maybe 5 minutes. She lived long enough to be pulled out, to be looked at, and to see like the human tragedy, and then she died. And to me, what's really important is that we should never forget the force that the earth has on us. You know, we live our lives going on as if this is going to last forever. And I think that that's really important to think about. I mean, and during the last few years, there have been like tragedies all over the world where the earth acts on its own will. And so that piece, to me, you know, that had a lot to do
What is
with
this
Colombia.
other piece about, the fourth picture that we have here?
Yes, yes.
What is that about?
That piece I made a few years ago, and it's talking about a form of freedom. I mean, it's an angelic figure, It's a figure of a woman, but as you notice, the painting has a very delicate, beautiful quality, but she's missing her head.
I see.
And to me, it's talking about the fact that with all the possibilities that we have in front of us in life, I think so many of us choose to live it without thinking, without taking in everything that's there, without really living it, without enough spirit involved. So that's talking about the possibility for a beautiful life, but a very essential part that's missing.
You call your work verdadism.
Right.
What does that stand for?
The word, it comes from the Spanish word verdad, which means the truth, and ism is for theory. And
So it's true, really the translation would be truism.
Verdadism.
Okay.
Well, it's a Spanish-English word,
Okay,
which
Spanglish.
it means to empower yourself with your own truth and going for it. And that's what the meaning that I made up for it.
And why that word? What is it? What is the theme throughout all your paintings that talks about inner peace or that truth inside yourself that you're searching for?
I guess it's an existentialist kind of truth of me, living to the fullest and expressing yourself and and touching subjects that may be taboo to touch in the society, and just letting yourself be expressed, and whatever it may be for the individual to do it, go for it and do it.
And also confronting, as you said earlier in the program, issues that may be taboo, issues that may be controversial, like racism.
Right. Yeah. Well, some people consider some of my pieces controversial, but I don't think they are. I think they're just a part of society. It's their statements that ought to be said.
Okay, well, we have to go. We're almost out of time. Thank you very much for being here. I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to spend some time with you and convey some of your ideas, some of your messages to our viewing audience. We have to go, as I said, but we hope to see you right here on NJN at this time next week for another edition of Images Imagenes. I'm Miguel Perez. Thank you for watching. Hasta pronto.